here's a story that I'm going to tell people. So Sandra and I have kind of glancingly connected over the last couple months. And then last week we had a fantastic conversation about what she does and how she does it. And then she just didn't finish doing it on me. And now I feel like I know myself better than I've ever known myself. So, for everybody who's watching, I'm super excited to introduce you to Sandra Lee. She is a goddess.
Oh,
And so, here's what I want to talk about though. Like when we were talking last week, we were talking about those near misses in relationships and how often those are things that are outside of the control of the people in that relationship and how you can help them put them back into control. Does that sound
yes.
so give me an example of how you can use me or you can use another client, you can do whatever you want of how you can help people bridge the gaps because they know themselves a little bit better.
I will give you a me example first, and
Oh,
then
I
we
love
can
it.
talk about other people examples too. I drive back and forth between British Columbia, where I live, and Washington State, where I used to live. My parents are in Washington State, and I stay at their house and I keep stuff there because, like, 8 or 9 times a year, I'm back and forth. One time, I drove down into Washington and I got to my mom and dad's house, and my mom picked a fight. And this had
As
never
only
happened.
mothers can do.
It had never happened before, and it was just like, "What happened?" And I was crying. I was threatening, "I'm never gonna come back here again." It was like it was miserable. From my parents' house to where I was going is an hour-long drive, and I drove that whole time, and I was sobbing the whole way. I probably wasn't
Mm.
safe to be driving, but I did it, right? And I got to where I was going, and I looked at the human design charts. I looked at my chart and I looked at her chart. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. To tell you the truth, I don't remember now what that was because it was so long ago. But I realized that in that conversation we had had, this is what she had made it mean. And this was what I had made it mean. And that we were just not in the same place. I still don't really know why she started that conversation as soon as I walked in the house. But it made sense of what had happened. She was here and I was here, and there was no way we were gonna get in the same place.
Mhm.
I stopped crying, and I called her immediately, and I said, "Hey, mom, I think this is what happened." And she just was like, "Oh, that makes sense." And then it went away, and we went back to normal. So, anytime somebody is behaving in a way that doesn't make sense to me, I look at the chart and it's like, "Oh, I see what's motivating that. Okay, it's not about me." Because the tendency is always, this mess happened, and what did I do wrong? And what do I have to do? But it's like, wow, it's all about me.
It's all about us. It's
When
always all about
really,
me.
yes, it's all about me. When really, I have my share of it, and my mom had her share of it, and we just weren't in the same place.
Yeah.
It explained everything. And I didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong. Just to be able to let it go, communicate what needs to be communicated, and be done.
Mhm.
It was dramatic and immediate as soon as I realized what was in the charts.
Right. So, when we were talking last week and we were talking about the people that this really is useful for, like, I feel like families are the I used to tell my kids when they were young, "You're each other's most precious gift." Families, when they work, are absolutely a a solid foundation. They're supports. These are people that know you really well. They love you not just because they have to, but because they want to and they know you. And when they don't work, everything is shaky.
It hurts, it's painful.
And it's
Yeah.
painful if two siblings don't get along, it's painful for parents. When a sibling and a sibling-in-law don't get along, it's painful for the family to they have to work around things, they can invite certain people at certain times, they have to walk on eggshells, so certain things don't come up, and so when we were talking last week, that feels like something that as a parent, if you can get some help in trying to figure out what language people are speaking and what their gaps are, what a powerful way to like you said, nobody's necessarily done anything wrong.
Mhm.
It's just that there's a gap in the communication.
Yeah. So, let me give one of the examples that I had shared with Jill last week. There are a couple of families where I'm working with the mother in the family. And you might make sense of this, that in a lot of families, the mother is the center of everything.
In my family, it is.
And if something is going to happen, something is going to change, it really has to be the mother that initiates the change because the other people aren't going to do it on their own. Now, sometimes the mother is actually a dysfunctional person, but in a lot of families, the mother is really the driving force between all of the growth and progression that is possible for everyone in the whole family. So it's often that mother who's the person who seeks help and who I wind up working with.
And
So
it's often the mother whose heart breaks when things aren't going well,
absolutely,
right? Like, if
it's
things aren't
heartbreak.
going well, you don't see your grandkids. If things aren't going well, it's the mother whose heart's breaking. A father can maybe yeah.
Yeah. There's these two families where there's the mother and the father and three daughters. And in both of these families, communication is strained between the mother and the daughters, multiple of the daughters. The mother is stressed about it all the time. Even though she wouldn't necessarily say she's stressed about it all the time, it's always distracting, keeping her from being able to focus on other things because the mother wants everybody to be happy.
Mhm.
The mother wants everybody to be successful and happy and productive in their life, and they want their grandkids to be happy and grow up and feeling like their daughters or their children have dysfunctional relationships, not just with her, but they must have dysfunctional relationships in the rest of their life. For the mother, that is like actively, it's like painful because you want your children to be happy and successful and productive in the world. You want to release them to the world when they're ready and to be confident that they can take care of themselves, that they can have healthy relationships, that they can have children and grandchildren of their own. If from your perception, they are not conducting themselves effectively, all of that is threatened. Once a mother, always a mother.
Mhm.
Your kids may be grown up out of the house forever, and mom is still taking care of them. And if they are not doing what the mother thinks would be good for them to be doing, mother can have pain around that. So in this case, the relationship between my client and the daughter was so strained that my client wasn't really able to go visit the grandchild as much as she wanted. This required, an airplane flight and arranging places to stay. So it just didn't happen very much. My client actively feels the loss of this, the loss
Mhm.
of smooth communication with her daughter, and the loss of developing a relationship with the grandchild.
Yeah.
Knowing people who have grandkids, the grandkids are like precious
They are to me.
to the grandparents. Absolutely. And so not being able to see the grandchild as much as she wanted was actively painful. I helped my client understand her human design chart, and I helped her understand her daughter's human design chart, and actually her whole family's human design charts. Looking at the behavior that the daughter displays, making sense of it. For those of you watching, Jill and I just did human design for
We
her
just did, yeah,
and made sense for her of the experiences and the decisions and the thought processes that she has.
yeah,
That's what the experience of doing human design is like. It's like, oh my gosh, you see me and you understand me. Oh my goodness. I had no idea. Of course, I do that all the time. I thought it was just me being like messed up. I was like, no, it's part of your design, it's part of the blueprint. So I helped my client understand herself and her idiosyncrasies and motivations. And I helped her understand her daughter's idiosyncrasies and behaviors and motivations. And I was like, oh, that's why she does that.
yeah,
Okay, it's not me doing anything wrong. That's just the chart displaying itself through my daughter's behavior. And then I said, okay, so when you talk with your daughter, try this, experiment, do something different than you've always done so that it becomes possible for your daughter to do something different over there. Let me talk about pigeonholes. I think of it that there's this pigeonhole,
yeah,
and here's my client inside the pigeonhole, and the daughter out here expecting my client to be in the pigeonhole. The only
right,
actions that are allowed for my client, as far as the daughter's concerned, are in here. So, daughter does something, says something, she always behaves exactly the same way. This is being conditioned, habitual, running these patterns over and over again, even though they're not necessarily effective. So I said to my client, okay, so instead of when she does this thing, you do this, you do something out here. Do something different from what your daughter expects. And initially, when you're doing something outside the pigeonhole, the other person might be upset. You're not doing the right thing. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this. But if you continue to do something outside the pigeonhole, over time, this person over here has to adjust. They have to relate to you differently when you're doing something out here. What I say is you train the people in your life what to expect in interacting with you. So if I change my behavior and I'm not in here anymore, I'm out here, this person has to do something different. They have to respond differently to be able to deal with that. And that means they are expanding their possible behaviors, which means that in the relationship between the two people, different things start becoming possible. You start being able to talk about the things that haven't been talked about before. You start to be able to look at things, understand things differently than you have in the past, not take things so personally. That makes available new possibilities. My client now, in the past couple of months, has spent multiple week visits staying in her daughter's house and getting to spend time with the grandchild. So much more freedom is available for both people in this relationship
mm-hmm,
because of understanding the motivations, understanding the design, and then somebody choosing to do things a little bit differently, different conversations, so that the person over here starts to expand what's possible for them.
right,
And over time, through interacting with my client in this new way, the daughter also has the possibility of gaining new skills and abilities.
right,
So that in her relationships out in the adult world, she has the ability to have more freedom, more capacity, be more effective in her adult life on her own. Having that hope gives my client, oh, my daughter, she's doing better. So
which then
everybody,
it releases her triggers probably, so
oh my
she's
goodness,
not
yes.
so,
And this has the possibility of making a difference for the whole family,
yeah,
everyone. There's less walking on eggshells, pretending, oh, is it okay for me to say this? Can I do that? I was like, you don't have to think about any of that so much because everybody has more freedom to be able to express themselves.
yeah,
and ask questions. Hey, when this happened, what's going on for you over there? Because this is what's going on for me over here. When you can have that kind of conversation,
And I think when you can acknowledge that that you're both seeing something, the same thing, but you're seeing it as 2 totally different events,
yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah, because it is 2 totally different events, and you have so many of those over time where you experience this, and I mean, it's natural anyway from a mother and daughter perspective because you always have as a mother, you see things as because this is your little chick you have to protect. And on this side, you're like, "Oh, this is my big monster mother that I have to get away from and break out and do my own thing from." Any other things on top of that just exasperate the natural kind of progression of daughters becoming teenagers and leaving their mother's houses.
yes. And really, ultimately, what is being triggered is safety triggers,
Mhm.
danger fears. But we're not conscious of that.
Yeah.
When my client does something outside of the pigeonhole, it can feel threatening to the other person
Yeah.
and it's not safe. Wait a minute, you're supposed to be all here and now you're doing something out there. I don't like that. It's threatening when something is different. People resist change.
Yeah.
So, helping people understand by talking about it. When I did this, how did you feel about that?
Yeah.
And make it safe to be able to express what's really going on and receive it without judging so that we're not piling more unfinished business on top of the old pile of unfinished business.
Yeah.
Start actually taking this big, huge pile of stuff. Because in some families, there's like these massive mountains of unfinished business that have been
Yeah.
there for decades. And when we allow all that stuff to be pulled away and no longer be limiting everybody, ooh, how much more is possible?
Yeah, not just in the family relationship, but just how much emotional bandwidth that frees up for everything you do in your life. And not just emotional bandwidth, all of the bandwidths, right?
Absolutely. So when all of that stuff is going on and there's all of this stress and uncertainty, and I carry it around with me everywhere I go all day long, and it's exhausting.
Mhm.
When my load back here gets smaller and smaller and smaller, how much more energy do I have to live my life, to do what I want to do, to create what I want to create when I'm not dealing with this background level of stress all of the time that's draining my energy and my focus away?
Yeah,
So much more is possible.
so much more is possible. I love that. So tell me a little bit about who your favorite clients are. Who are the people that you're attracting into your practice right now?
Well, right now, I want to have more people like these families.
Yeah.
I
I
should,
really see that honestly as making the entire world a better place. Because how often do I go with my girlfriends for lunch and what I have to talk about is their 2 kids that don't get along. So if they got along better, those 2 kids, I would have a better time with my friends.
yes,
And again, it's all about me.
yes. Well, but ultimately, it really is.
Yeah,
Everybody is always ultimately about themselves.
yeah. And
Yes,
I know, like, my daughter works with some people and there's problems in their relationships. It trickles out a long ways, those problems in relationships.
yes.
And if you can fix that, the whole world would be sunnier.
Let's just take a theoretical example.
Okay.
Okay. Jill's daughter and Jill's daughter's friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Jill's daughter's friend's got some stuff going on and she's complaining about it to Jill's daughter. Jill's daughter wanting to be friends and wanting friend to like her and all that stuff. She listens and she might take some of this stuff onto herself.
Yep.
So Jill's daughter is carrying around some stress, some stuff. She might be making up things about what's possible in a relationship, what's possible in friendship. Who knows what, in response to this person's storytelling and complaints, who
It gets
knows
into
what
somebody else's filter.
people make decisions about what's possible for themselves in their life based on what other people say and based on what other people feel. If this person's talking about issues with a boyfriend, Jill's daughter might be making lifetime decisions about what's possible in relationship based on the story that her friend is sharing. It might have nothing whatsoever to do with the reality of what Jill's daughter's relationship going to look like, but I make decisions, limiting decisions based on what somebody else says. Or another example, children with parents who fight.
Yep.
What kinds of things is the child making up is possible about themselves in relationship when their parents fight? All kinds of not so good stuff.
Yep.
Oh, relationship looks like that. I don't think I want anything to do with that. Or this is how I'm supposed to behave in that relationship situation. And
Or
how
I've
I
done
want this
something
outcome.
wrong and it's causing my parents to fight.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff based on the past is trauma that's limiting my decision and my ability to be myself
Yeah.
and what's possible for me in life. So with human design, we help people to understand, how is it I'm designed? What is my experience supposed to be? What are the themes that I'm going to have in my life? What are the gifts that I'm here to have?
Right.
And then I do neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy to help relieve the trauma from the past so that people can be like a whiteboard without all kinds of gunk on it,
Yeah.
a fresh slate.
Yeah.
So I can decide, what is it I want? And how do I take this human design chart that tells me what my gifts are? And how do I write on the whiteboard about who I am and what I want to be based on that design? Because human design also helps you understand your gifts and what you're good at, why you're here, how you're here to serve.
Which keeps you from getting stuck in the sludge of the things you're not good at.
Yes. But even the things you're not good at, there are ways in which those are actually your gift too.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier today. Anybody who's watching this who knows me will know this is true. I like to start 1,000 different things. I like to have a lot of things on the go, and I get a little frustrated if they're not all finished. Every day I start something new without finishing the things before, and I have ways to cope with that so that I'm much better at it than I used to be. It's interesting that that is not just a fatal flaw. If you know what it is and you have the skills to flip the script.
I helped Jill to see that as her making a contribution. It's actually a gift.
The biggest one to me was the blame thing. One of my gifts is to the universe is I am somebody that gets blamed for things whether I do them or not. Something goes a little bit awry and I'm in the mix, then I'm just an easy person to blame. And I always thought about that as a personality flaw or as a lack of myself communicating clearly about whatever it was. So things got taken out of context or whatever. And instead, Sandra, what is it?
Anytime that's happening, you are providing a service because there's a lot of people out there who have this blame energy. And by being the person who is willing and able to receive it, you are providing a service. And it may have nothing whatsoever to do with you. It's not personal. Allowing people to put that blame energy onto you means that that expression of blame is being expressed in the world and it's not about you.
Yeah,
It's a service.
that is so lovely. So now we're finished with this. And to close our little podcast, I like to ask one spectacular thing that somebody's done for you or that you're planning to do for somebody.
I do this for people every time I do human design reading. I
And you
realize,
just did one for me, which is a spectacular gift.
yes, I realize that I'm going to change that person's life forever. You will never see that experience of someone blaming you for something. You'll never see it the same way again.
Never.
Every time now you will, oh, there's that blame thing. I'm making a contribution. I'm making a difference.
And this won't make any sense to anyone but you or I. But if I do become a cult leader in Romania, it's in the cards, baby.
Yes, the chart makes sense of it all.
Yeah.
And so it means that you're living your design, you're living your blueprint. Everyone makes a difference 24/7. Even when you are taking out the garbage, you're making a difference.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on today. I love what you do. I love what you do, and I love the difference that you make, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my peeps because I know it's gonna make a difference in some people's lives. This is how I finish everything. If you do work with Sandra and you wanna call me and tell me about it, her contact information is gonna be in my show notes. My contact information is always there. I would love to hear about it. So have a wonderful day, and we will talk again next week.
Thank you, everybody. If you want to talk with me, I have an action plan call that's complimentary. So,
Yeah,
anybody who's interested, let's talk.
give her a call.